Hello and welcome to Gabbett Media. I'm Grant Abbott and today we're talking about standing desks and why I think you need one. So you probably know I'm quite keen on posture issues and health whilst doing computer work, especially digital art, where you're sitting down on the computer for hours on end. So it's really important to me. And I contacted a few companies to see if I could get a standing desk. And luckily, Friskadesk got back to me and they offered me their Stockholm, this new range, and I've been using that for the last 3 or so months, so I'll be reviewing that in this video also. So let's start with why I think you need a good standing desk. Well, to start off with, a good chair is always useful and it's helpful in terms of your posture and how you're seated, but I feel that doesn't offer enough in terms of being able to move around whilst you're working. So even with a good chair, you're sitting there and you're stuck in one position, which isn't very good for the body. Like I said at the start, my health is obviously very important to me and my posture is a real issue. Now, I've had lots of problems with my shoulders, especially my left one, and I've dislocated it quite a few times. And I think it probably is something to do with my posture. It doesn't necessarily equate to my posture whilst I'm working. It could just be my posture in everyday life, but it's something I've had to think about and work on a lot when I'm trying to kind of rehabilitate this shoulder. And I've certainly felt for a while that my posture whilst working isn't always the best, even though I've got a good quality chair and I've got my monitors set up to the right heights and so forth. It just doesn't feel right. I take regular breaks. That's really important, so if you aren't going to get a standing desk, then make sure you are taking lots of breaks, move around a lot in between. I even do sort of yoga stretches and so forth in between working. But the standing desk offers me that flexibility. The difference is it gives you more options, so I can stand up in the morning and then sit down in the afternoon when I'm feeling a bit more tired. I can move around at my desk while standing and do sort of calf raises and a few squats, a few stretches, and it's much easier than being in a chair. Even on Zoom meetings and things like that, I'm finding I'm able to sort of stretch my lower half without interrupting too much with the meeting that I'm holding. And I'm sure it's those options that are really helping me to feel a lot better. When I first got the desk and I was using it for a few days, I did notice I ached a little more around the back of my neck and the lower spine. And I think that was actually my body finally adjusting to not sitting down all day. At the end of the day, I felt a lot more physically tired and therefore able to sleep a bit better. Even though I exercise a lot during the day, that standing really helped and has improved my fitness very slightly. I used to get a lot of neck problems and neck pains, and now I don't. Even though in the first few days I did feel a slight ache in my neck, I feel a lot better now and I haven't got any neck pains at all. I'm not saying it's a miracle cure and it's not going to automatically solve all your posture issues. You do still need to think about what you're doing and how you're moving and how you're interacting with your work equipment. The main thing is it's giving me options and making me think about my posture whilst working. So in the mornings I'll raise the desk up and I'll stand here, in fact like I am now with it raised up, I'm standing up and it feels really nice. I can have my back and shoulders back and I'm actually thinking about that. And even when I'm working, I like to work on my drawing tablet standing up. It just feels more comfortable. Then when I get a bit tired in the afternoon, then I'll lower it down and just have a bit of a relax and start working a little bit more slouched, but still with my shoulders back and so forth, but just relaxing a bit more. And then maybe in the evening, depending on what sort of work I'm doing, I'll raise it up again. And I think it's that variation of posture and movement that's really making a difference. Obviously, I'm still taking lots of breaks and doing lots of movements in between, like when I'm rendering a video, for example, or rendering something in Blender, I can just move back and start stretching around the place, and that's really nice. But I really think it was spending a long time in one position that was causing me a lot of problems, and this has changed that, which I'm really grateful for. So what do you need to look out for in a standing desk? And we'll take a quick look at Friskadesk at the same time. Well, check the height that it goes up to. I'm fairly tall, I'm 6'2"-ish, somewhere around there. And this desk goes up to 130 centimeters, and that works fine for me. I can raise it up almost to the top there, and it works just fine. It's probably a good idea to check the weight that it carries. You probably will be leaning on it. You'll have a fair few monitors if you're like me. I like to have my desktop on my desk as well because then it lifts up with the desk and I can plug things into it and I can get to the back of it much easier. And I don't have to worry about the wires too much because they all lift up with it. That was one thing I was slightly concerned about, how the wires were going to work with it, but they just all come up with it and they're in wire trays and they've got sort of wire holes at the back of the desk. So that works out perfectly. The next thing that's really important is the build quality. Now you don't have to worry so much about that with a standard desk, but a standing desk you really do, because the motors are going to be all important. So you certainly don't want noisy motors. If you're upstairs in an office and there's people underneath you, they'll hear the motors every time the desk goes up. These are very quiet, the ones from Friskadesk, and I'm very impressed. My wife doesn't hear me downstairs when I'm raising the desk up and down. The other important thing about build quality is whether it wobbles at height. Friskadesk is really good, very impressed. There's minimal wobble at the top of the scale, and I use it for drawing on a tablet on the desk, and it doesn't move and it's very comfortable. Obviously typing away and things like that, no problem at all. But that is definitely something to bear in mind, and the cheaper models you might see some wobble at the top end. The other thing you might want to look for, although it's not as important, is whether it's programmable or not. So mine is nice and easy to program at 2 different heights, so I can press button 1 or button 2 and I can program them in and set them, so I just press and hold button 1 to get it to the same height and hold button 2 to bring it up again. Now I'm really impressed with Friskadesk. Their build quality is exceptional. They build them in Sweden, so I think that really makes a difference. Like I said, it's really nice, solid and stable, very heavy, so do watch out for that when you're carrying it into position and when you're even fixing it together. It's very heavy, so it does take a little bit of effort. You might need 2 people. The top of the desk looks very hard wearing. It's very hard laminate that's not going to chip and wear easily. And the wire tray, the controller and the holes for the wires, they're all nicely made and fit together really perfectly. Now it's worth pointing out they're not the cheapest, but they're certainly not the most expensive either. They really are about quality build, so I would personally want to go for a company like that, and I would recommend Friskadesk for that reason. It's important to say, and I probably should have said at the start, they're not paying me to say this. They have sent me a desk, which I'm very grateful for, but this is an honest review as always. And on that note, the only downside I could see were the instructions. They're a little bit poor, but I think that might be because it's a new range and the instructions were kind of for a different model, so they haven't quite sorted out the instruction set for this particular model. That's how I understand it, because it did seem a little odd and took me a little time to put together. So to summarize, if you are able to, I would thoroughly recommend getting a standing desk, and I would put it on your priority list above maybe even a 3rd monitor or whatever it might be that you really is on your wish list. The difference it's made to me is quite remarkable, and it's given me those options to sort of move around whilst working and not keeping me in one position for long periods of time. Now, of course, not everybody can afford this. If you can't, then make sure you are taking regular breaks, moving around lots, maybe incorporate a stretching routine into your day in several intervals, and make sure you're not sitting in one location for longer than an hour. That's far too long in my opinion. You don't want to end up like me with lots of shoulder problems, and it is excruciatingly painful to dislocate your shoulder. So please, please, please look after yourself. Anyway, that's probably the best note to end it on. Thank you very much to Friskadesk for sending me the desk, and thanks to you for watching. I'll see you next time.